Hello and welcome to the next ReeVlog. I'm not sure why I decided to record this right here on my bed, but I did. So I had a bath, my hair's still drying out, but I wanted to talk about yesterday's D&D game. Yes, that seems to be most of what I talk about now, and I really should do some coursework, but I can't bring myself to do it at the moment. I've had a headache all day. But hopefully that'll go. It's been fading very slowly. I've been drinking a lot of water. I'm not sure if I was dehydrated because all I've been drinking recently is water and cups of tea, and predominantly water. So I'm not really sure why I would be dehydrated. But whatever. Maybe it's something I ate. But yes, I have got D&D to talk about. Coursework I plan on doing like tomorrow and Sunday. Though I kind of plan on going to Knight's Tower Sunday. I think they're doing their final moving of stuff, so maybe not. Which means next week. Please, next week. Probably not next week because I've got a marathon. I've got a 10k next Sunday. Whether I do it or not, we'll see. But my plan is to do coursework this weekend, so I don't have to do so much during the week, because I really struggle to do stuff weekdays, coursework wise. So I think I'm just going to try and have a nice chill-ish day today, get rid of the headache. I've got D&D later, well, kind of D&D later. I have a role-playing session later, but there's no like stats or anything, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Last time I did it, it was good fun. But yesterday, when I was DMing, we had an interesting set of things happen. We had Sheev join the party. Sheev of the One Tree Hill. I'm not sure why that's his name, or why that he picked that as his name, but that's what it is. He is a wizard, so we now have a fully full caster along with the two half casters, and they fucked around in the city for a while. I think it'll take a little bit for them to get used to the new party dynamic. Then they went and with a retinue of people to go and secure the mine because there was a threat. So the leader, Felicity, said, yeah, we're going to take some mages. I'm the most powerful mage in the city. We're going to see what we can do. So she was like, let's go. You guys know the way better than us. So let's go. But mages disappeared from the trail because the ranger scouted ahead, but didn't roll very well on their perception to start with, or investigation even to start with. So that was, they didn't see anything to start with. Meanwhile, 2 of the 8 mages went missing. Then another 2. By this point, a couple people had noticed, but none of the other mages had. Then the ranger was like, roll a survival check and could find some tracks, 2 sets of tracks. And they run round, and followed the tracks back round behind the party, across the path a couple times, and then went up and warned the rest of the group. At this point, everyone stopped. There were only 2 mages left at this point, plus Felicity and the 3 members of the party. So, the wizard, Sheev, decided, I'm going to cast Gust to blow down the tall grass around us, which worked out wonderfully, and there were 2 half-orcs, vampire spawn, stood there and rolled initiative. And one of the 2 mages just ran. I made them make a wisdom save because they've not been in combat or anything before. They just work and no magic, and they were coming to make a barrier, not to fight. So they ran. They bolted. Actually, no, both of them bolted. Yeah. Then, following which, there was a fight in which one of the vampires got absolutely annihilated by the paladin smiting him. And also got shot a few times. Well, Felicity was trying to figure out what's going on. She's not used to combat, but she kept her composure a bit better than the other two mages. She's a very experienced mage, but she's not used to combat. She's a fighter, like, that's her spirit, is she fights, but she knows that there's more important things to do than deal with those two small fries, because she has to go and seal this barrier. So she didn't waste any spells or anything during that period. She did use a single hold monster, because she wasn't sure whether to use hold person or hold monster. She's highly intelligent, but hadn't encountered vampires and stuff before. Hold monstered it. It succeeded on the save with a natural 19. And that was that, really. The one was running away, got an attack opportunity from the paladin, who smited it, but it lived, just. And then they ran up on their badger, because they have a giant badger mount. It got the badger to launch them towards it, and they managed to hit it and get a technical knockout by severing its right leg and crushing the bone in its left leg. So it cuts with a mace through the knee, because the knee gets folded into the other leg and the pressure cuts through it and crushes this leg. It passes out shortly after. They drag it into the sunlight, and he puts his foot on its chest. It snarls at him when they ask it questions, and then he slaps it, and then it bites him in the foot. It gets through the plate mail boot, this half-orc vampire, because they were both half-orc vampires, which I thought would just be cool, because they have tusks normally anyway, and they have fangs because they're vampires, so they have tusks and fangs. And he managed to succeed on the save, so he can't get vampirism or take any extra damage, because that's the thing I was doing. I was very much winging it. And then he hits it and it dies because he smited it. And it's in sunlight, so it doesn't, no, he didn't even smite it, but it's in sunlight, so it couldn't go gas, so it died. Felicity's flown off to do her job, as they hear a roar coming from the direction of the mine, and for some reason the ranger and the wizard inspect the clothing of the vampires and take the shirt with them, whilst the badger riding paladin and Felicity, the leader of the city, race off towards the mine. They get there, they hear more roars. Felicity starts just doing her thing on the ceiling and whatnot. They wake up one of the mages, because the ranger has a sleep arrow function on the bow, and shoots one of the mages, and lo and behold, knock them out. They wake up the mage. Turns out his name's Alan. He's terrified and crying, but they manage to persuade him to get to work. So he's working quite slowly. Then they make a campfire, because it's getting to nighttime. Then they've made their campfire. Alan's done a few sigils. Felicity's done many sigils. It's a 300-foot across circumference. I think it's circumference. Is that circumference or is that circumference? Diameter. It's a 300-foot diameter circle that they're trying to put runes all the way around, effectively. And they're arcane runes, so you have to get them right. Otherwise it won't work. They're trying to put up a shield, effectively. Which they succeed at, eventually. But on the way to this point... Oh man, there's so much salt. I really need to bust out the Hoover. Side point. I had this thing full of salt because I had the starts of a finger infection. And for some reason, the lid came off and spilt salt everywhere. And now, somehow, it's all managed to get, in my bed. I need to change the bedclothes and whatnot. I will probably do that later. But yeah. Yes, they heard a heavy sound as something landed in the mine. And they didn't know what it was. They looked. It was very far down. It was dark. So they before this, by the way, they'd sent the giant badger in with light on it and couldn't see anything. This time they decide, I'm going to shoot an arrow with light on it down the tunnel. So that way there'll be light pass through. But arrows move quite fast, so only one of them was actually able to see the giant naked mole rat corpse just laying there, missing its tongue, with its jaw ripped open. They shoot an arrow into it, and notice that it's slowly turning into mist. They don't know this, but that is the first vampire that has gone mad, or had gone mad, and was trapped in a giant mole rat form, effectively. But it was dead, but it wasn't like fully dead because vampires. So it was turning very slowly into gas because it's so big and it's been so long since it died that it's slowly working its way through it. The paladin smites it and part of it sort of melts off and then turns to ash on the floor whilst the rest of it keeps going. And they hear another roar and feel a through the ground. So the paladin's like, nah, fuck this shit, and runs out of the mine, and they hear another roar, and it seems to be getting closer. So the other two start walking out, another roar, and another getting closer. Then one of them just flies because they have wings, so they fly out, and the other one starts running. And out of the darkness, in the depths of the mine, comes a giant sort of cudgely mace-like thing. It just goes, hits them in the back for, I think it was like 19 points of bludgeoning damage. It just goes, and the cudgely thing disappears again. And pocket to socket, they make it out of the mine. Felicity and Alan are still working, though Alan is still struggling. And I would like to point out that Alan is one of the random 8 mages that didn't have names at all, but he's the only one who made it, and they asked him his name, so we've called him Alan. And they're all abjuration mages, abjuration wizards, because it makes sense for them to be, because they're making a big shield. So Felicity's doing her thing, Alan's doing their thing. The 3 party members look down the hole and see a half-orc with a massive cut above their right eye, just bleeding profusely, as they have a broken tusk this side and a growing fang, and a tusk this side that probably comes up to just below their eye. And they're carrying a giant cudgel, like mace, have a ring on their other hand, and are wearing a loincloth. That's it. They are running full pelt towards them. They're currently like 160 feet away or something like that. And it's just whoa. So of course the ranger starts taking pot shots at it. The first one hit with a 23. That was the armor class that I decided on, because I didn't actually have a full stat block for this creature. I just knew vaguely what it was. I believe it probably should have been higher than that, because they're using Barbarian's Unarmored Defense, which I think is 8 plus Dex plus Con, and you can use a shield, but he wasn't. And I'm pretty sure that they have 24 Con and 20 Dex, which is plus 7 plus 5, which is plus 12. So it should only be 20 AC. So I guess we'll just bump up that Con a bit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. To plus 10, obviously. Which makes sense because they have a lot of health. They started this with 300 HP. Bear in mind the party's level 5. Felicity is level 14, but she was busy doing this barrier,
rather than fighting. And she's a wizard, an abjuration wizard who focuses mostly on defensive spells rather than offensive spells. She also casts Bigsby's hand in order to have it draw at the same time she's drawing. And she was using both hands, as was Alan. Alan's ambidextrous. Felicity isn't. She was just so good. She's trained in the art of drawing sigils with multiple hands at the same time. And, yeah. So, doing that, and then, they're still taking pot shots. The, paladin's yeeting javelins at it, only hits it with one, and runs out of javelins, so takes up position in front of Alan, because Alan would otherwise have been the closest person to it. So he takes up position, mace and shield in hand, in front of Alan. It's ready. Then it hits him once. The wizard casts Grease and Sleet Storm, ready for it. And it arrives. It fails its dex save. It shouldn't have done. I was doing the rules slightly wrong because it's a paladin barb rogue. So it should have passed because it adds its charisma modifier to its saving throws, which I forgot to do, but that's okay. So it slips over and on the floor, prone. Okay. Alan stops what he's doing and casts Hold Person on it. And it works. So it's there, paralyzed. Alan gets back to work. The party keep trying to hit it. It succeeds its save the next round. Alan casts it again. Keeps going. The party, they're wearing it down. They do like over 100 points of damage in these 2 rounds. No hassle. I think they did like 150, nearly 200. And then it succeeds its save. And Alan's out with 2nd level spells. Felicity is busy focusing entirely on getting these runes done, because once they're done, everyone should be fine. Then they keep going, and the dude 2 hands this mace-like, cudgel-like weapon into the paladin who's in front of Alan. It was a natural 20. So, on a natural 20, they were reckless attacking, so they had advantage, which means they should have had sneak attack from their rogue feature, which I forgot to do. I also forgot to get them to dump any smite into it. However, just normally on their normal thing, they have their weapon on a critical hit. The creature becomes vulnerable to all of the damage dealt, unless it was immune, in which case it becomes resistant instead. So, you double the damage. There are a half-orc, so they get a savage attack dice, or whatever it's called, and a level 20 barbarian, so they have brutal critical dice. So, it ends up being, I think, 5d12, and this particular character has a feature where if they roll a 12 on any of their attack dice, when they hit, they get 1 extra attack dice. This does not stack multiple times, because otherwise they could, in theory, do infinite damage. So I did, and I did. So I rolled 6d12, and doubled it, and it was about 40. And I was like, cool. And they were like, okay, I'm unconscious, I'm down. And I was like, okay. And then I was about to keep going. I was like, wait, they're vulnerable because it's a crit. So it's 160, you are dead. So the paladin just got yeeted out of the battlefield and just hits a tree, flops on the ground. And they were out of the battle for the rest of it. Seeing that, the ranger and the wizard are like, fuck this shit, and run. They keep firing at it, throwing firebolts, shooting arrows, using Hunter's Mark, Bramble Shot, or whatever it's called, and then enlarge on one of the arrows so it turns into like a ballista bolt as it goes. It's pretty intense, and they manage to take this creature down to below 0. But because they're a half-orc, they come back anyway. Then, for their action next turn, they cast Lay on Hands on themselves because they're a level 20 paladin as well as a level 20 barbarian and a level 20 rogue. They're a level 60 character. They place one of their hands upon themselves, and all of the arrows that were stuck in them and the javelin just sort of out slightly as the wounds heal and start pushing them out, and all of the blood that's poured out of them seeps back in as their eyes flash red briefly. I love that as a moment. The barrier was finished at this point, and Alan was still inside, but teleported out with a Misty Step or something. I think it's a first level spell, so I just winged it and said it was. If not, then he has an ability where he can cast it once a day, because why not? And he is just out of there. Felicity teleports the corpse of Azrael the Paladin, Alan herself, and would do the other two. However, they both resist and manage to beat the spell save, so they don't get teleported away. They are left behind. But the barrier is one way, so they keep shooting him through it. And his first attack against the barrier did over 200 points of damage. I think it was like 286 points of damage. Just... the barrier holds, because it's a very good barrier. I didn't have any hard and fast rules for it, or anything like that, but I was effectively thinking that it can withstand up to 300 points of damage before it gets damaged, and it goes back to full health at the start of every round. So it got damaged because it's got 3 attacks, but it didn't get broken, and then it goes back to full health. So it succeeded, and then he spent the next 2 rounds trying to do that. He's not a super intelligent character, but you hit it enough times, and you go down, you break out. He doesn't break the barrier. He breaks the wall and goes around the barrier, because it's in a mine shaft. It's solid rock at the edge of this wall, but he's got 30 strength. And just minor cave in, walks through it, and is out. And at this point, they decide they're just going to leave, and that's where we left it. I'm very happy with how things went. This level 60 character is a demigod. That's a rule I have in my games, is that once you get to level 20, between levels 21 and 59, you're somewhere between mortal and demigod. Hit level 60, you are a demigod. Get above level 60, you start entering godhood. He's a demigod, but he thinks that he is a god. He's not very intelligent. He thinks that he is a god and uses the name of an actual god, and that god is not very happy about it, but can't do anything at the moment. But yeah, the paladin who died is being brought back by Felicity. I know that resurrection isn't really a wizard spell, I don't think, but I've given it to her because she is a sort of prodigy, gifted individual, and he's an Aasimar. So, his celestial guide is having words with him whilst he's dead. But my favourite thing, and Johnny, the player who is that paladin, if you're watching, stop now. I really love what I've done with the Celestial Guide, because the Celestial Guide is like, you have a Celestial Guide, however, the Celestial Guide works through the power of the sun, but all entities who work for the sun eventually fall to the dark sun, or the black flame, or something along those lines. I wrote it down somewhere. And this dark sun, black flame is not evil. it's more practical. The sun feature is very nice, kind, naive. The dark sun, a lot of fallen angels work for the dark sun, but there are angels who haven't fallen but work for the dark sun because it's more practical. These are usually the warriors, the paladins, whereas the clerics tend to stick with the normal sun. So the power that that this paladin has currently comes from the sun, but their celestial guide, the one who has been able to give them this power even through the problem that this island has. This island is separated in a way from the rest of the universe. They've managed to give them power of the dark sun through themselves as a conduit, but they have become chained of the normal sun, but they've become chained to the dark sun as this Aasimar that they've chained themselves, that they've linked themselves to, has been acting not entirely just good. They're like a bit of a prankster and stuff like that, which is less practical, but it's also not naive. And so the more that they do stuff like that, the more that their celestial guide falls towards the dark sun. And their celestial guide is a very powerful angel. So yeah, like I think Solas or Divas are like challenge rating 23 angels. It's like that, but better. Yeah, this is apparently 26 minutes long, so I'm gonna go now, and I'll catch you cats on the flip flop. Goodbye.